Hey everyone, and welcome back to K2N Academy. Did you know that businesses are saving millions of dollars just by migrating to AWS? Let's dive in and see how you could make it happen as well. In this video, we're going to break down AWS migration step by step so you have a clear understanding of how it works and why it exactly matters. So let's dive in.
So let's do the migration now. Now, what I'm going to be migrating now, or I'm going to show you as in what I'll be migrating. So I have my on-prem setup. Okay, and my on-prem setup is nothing but Azure. But let's consider this as my on-premise, on-prem. And I have 3 servers in Azure. Okay, I have 3 machines. One is Windows and the other 2 are Linux. Linux 1, Linux 2. I have 3 websites running on all these 3 machines: IAS website, Apache website, and NGINX. And you guys are the users in the outside world. You access my application over the internet. I have 3 applications. Now my business decides, Avdesh, because of some legal agreements with our organization, I want to move all these 3 servers to AWS. So how do you move it from here to here is the task that we'll be doing. Migrating from Azure to AWS, which is Azure technically means for you, it's on-prem. How do I migrate my servers to AWS? So is it like copy the data of these 3 machines and then go ahead and create 3 machines in AWS? No. So everything that you have learned so far, something that I have to explain you more is how the architecture would look like. So this is on the what you see on the left side is your source, app server, DB server. In my case, I told you I have 3 servers: app, web, or whatever you want to call it. I have 3 servers. The 3 servers, I'll be starting the migration. And when you start the migration, as you can see, we'll be using the service, AWS MGN service, application migration service, to migrate the data. But from the on-prem, it won't just come and sit on AWS just like that. There is something in between. This is your source, this is your target, but there is something called staging area. What is a staging area? Why do we need a staging area? Can't I just, anyways, I know I've decided to migrate these 2 servers, take the server, put it here, take the server, put it here, and just eliminate this middleman. I don't like the middleman. So apparently the staging area is more like a temporary location, temp location, that my replication data from the source is temporarily stored here. And once I want to create the new machine, maybe at 2 o'clock in the morning when there is no traffic, I can take some downtime, or on a weekend when my employees are not using my application, I can take a downtime. So I keep it in the replication server or in the staging area. And once the data is 100% copied to the staging area, go ahead and create your machines in AWS. So the same thing we are going to be doing now. Here, I told you this is my AWS, right? So in AWS also, I will have a staging location where the 3 machines will be sending the data. Okay, and then I will also go ahead and prepare my prod so that once the replication of 3 are completed, I can go ahead and create my 3 machines and all my user traffic will come here to AWS. And then I can just go ahead and decommission my Azure servers. This is a very simple process that we're going to be trying now. Okay, let's have a look at our Azure. This is my Azure account. I'm using somebody else's Azure account. I have 3 servers in virtual machines. I have total 3 servers. So the 3 servers are Apache Linux, IAS Web Server, and NGINX web server.
By the way, guys, there is a free AWS migration training that is happening soon. And in that free class, we're going to give you step-by-step instructions on how you could set up your own AWS cloud migration. We're going to provide you a whole roadmap with it. Plus, we'll also be providing you some interview questions to help you get ready. And there's only 100 seats left. So make sure you click on the link in the description below and sign up for your own free class.
And they all have different IP address. So what does the IP address do? It simply means you can create like you can expose your application, right? So if I go to Apache Linux 01, I copy the IP address, I try to paste it. It takes me to the NGINX website, and I go to the second server, which is my Windows 2019. Copy the IP address, paste it. It says this is our test Windows server hosted in Azure East US region. I go to the third machine, it says NGINX. Copy the IP address. I want to see what's hosted here. It says this is Avdesh, Apache web server on Ubuntu. It says it's working. I can see the default page. Okay, so I have 3 servers in Azure, and all 3 are web servers hosted with the public IP. Now I need to start my migration. What's the first stage in a migration? What is the first step in a migration, guys? Assess or discover, right? We have to start the discovery pre-migration. How do we do it? And I told you this AWS Migration Hub is a service that literally has every information that you would need in terms of management, monitoring, starting the replication, discovery, and everything. If I go to the dashboard, you can see how many migrations are completed, how many servers are pending, how many agents are installed, and you name it, you have it. So first step is I will go ahead and install the discovery agent on one of my machine. So in the Migration Hub, under the Discover tab, there's something called as data collectors, and there's something called as data agents. If you click on it, you can see all the servers that are sending the data, that have migrated successfully, that are not sending the data with date, time, and everything, and their IP address. So before I started the session, I actually initiated the replication of, or not the replication, the discovery of one of the machine, and it is actually, yeah, you can see NGINX Linux 2. This NGINX Linux 2, I have already started the discovery. Why did I do it? Considering the time, I won't be able to sit and do all 4 different phases, wait for the replication to be completed because there's 30 GB of disk, and then cut over, switch over, perform everything. So it's not practically possible to do it in 2 hours or 1.5 hours. Hence, I've done half the things before this, kept it ready, and half the things we will do it now. So I said NGINX Linux 2 server is already sending the data, collecting the data, it's running, correct? Now let's go ahead and discover this server, Apache Linux 01. But how do I discover it? Where do I discover it from? So first and foremost, we need to connect to the server, which is a Linux server. So how do you do it? You do it through SSH. You can either SSH from your server, or if you have any other machines, you can just do it that way. But nonetheless, I have a machine and I have installed this putty tool, pasting the IP address of my server. I say yes, I accept it. I log in with the username and password, and I've logged into the Apache Linux server 01. Why? Because Apache or NGINX server Linux 2 is already discovered. Now I want to show you how to discover this server. Like discovery in the sense, just running some analysis, collecting the details about the server, understand the performance, how much disk space is needed, how much is the CPU that is needed, and everything. So to get the discovery tool, what is the name of the tool? It's called ADS, Application Discovery Service. Under the Discover, go to Tools. AWS Discovery Agent is there. Click on this arrow. You have it for Windows and Linux. whatever is the flavor, whether you download it and install it or download it through commands. In my case, I want to do it through the commands. Okay, copy the command that was there, go back to the machine, open a notepad, and I paste it. And something new I'm seeing. I see the curl command, that's basically to download the agent, a file, and then tar command, that's basically to unzip the zip file. Gz means it's a zip file. Like in Windows, you have .7z or .zip, and we use WinRAR and all, right? In Linux, gz is basically the zip file, compressed file. So I downloaded a compressed file, and then I unzip that compressed file, and then I'm going to install that compressed file, the unzipped file. That's it. But I need to have necessary permissions to install that file. So you need a username and password to install that file. Only after you validate that you have the right permissions, it will let you install the file. And I see some username and password, some code, and doesn't make any sense, right? So it turns out to be a security feature in AWS that in order to go ahead and install these discovery agent and migration agent, we need to have a separate usernames and user accounts so that it's easy to manage the permission. So what I did was I created a user called ADS user, and this is the username and password. And then I created a user called MGN user, username and password. And then my admin user who has all permissions, username and password. But what is this weird username and weird looking password? These are nothing but access keys. If I store my username as K21admin or Avdesh and my password is password at 123, you guys are watching the screen. Chances are you might steal it. But when you have an access key, it is really hard or difficult to crack. Hence, we use this access key from the IAM. So I go to this IAM console and I go to users. You see, I have created multiple users, ADS user, MGN user, K21admin. Go to the username and go to security credentials. And there we have an option called access key. You can create an access key, which comes like this, and then you also get a password. So this is far, far secure than using a username and password. Can you see? I've created an access key for this user, ADS user, which is basically access key is the username, secret key is the password. Access key and secret key. Now, in the command that I saved in my Windows machine, so it says download the file, unzip the file, and install the file using this access key and password, which I have saved it here already. So download, unzip, install, the location where you want to install, username and password. So let's go ahead and copy and delete. So go ahead and copy and run the same. I'm connected to the machine, right? Just hit enter. It's downloading. Downloaded. Next, copy whatever the file that you've downloaded, unzip it. Great. Now go ahead and install what you just unzipped. Enter. Okay, okay, okay. So it says, if you see initializing, installing, finishing. Okay, currently the agent is running as a version 2.0.2. Wait for a few minutes. The data from Apache-Linux 1 should be sent to AWS console. We'll wait for 30 seconds and we will check if this is reflecting here in a migration hub. So I just installed my discovery service on one of the machine. I go to data collectors and the discovery agent. Health, where is health? Okay, nginx linux 02 is there. Apache-Linux 1 must come anytime soon. There are many machines. So I'll wait for a few minutes. There we go. So the agent or the discovery service that I installed on that machine has started to send the data. Apache Linux 1, Nginx Linux 2. Apache Linux 1, Nginx Linux 2. So now the AWS agent that I installed on these two machines have started to collect the data about the CPU usage, peak usage, memory usage, how many CPU does this machine have, what's the total size of the disk and everything. It's better that you collect it for a few hours. You can see my Apache Linux 1, there is hardly anything. It's collecting, it's healthy. Second machine, it's collecting, it's still running. Now, I'll have to wait for a few days or few hours for this to be like sending some substantial data where I can rely on. After I capture all the data, if you want to know what are the recommended EC2 instance sizes, what should be the right size for my migrated machines, all those, you have an option called recommendations, so using which you can download an Excel sheet with the region that you want to migrate it to, and then based on that you'll know how much it's going to cost you. So first step is done. Discovery is completed. How? We installed the discovery agent on the respective machines so that it starts sending the data. It has started to send the data, so we are good on the phase, the first one. Okay, Apache Linux 1, Apache Linux, Nginx Linux 2. Great. Next is to go ahead and install the migration agent, right? Like I do all my analysis in the back end, figuring out the usage and everything. The discovery phase is done. The second phase is mobilize. What do you actually do in mobilize? If you want to set up a network, if you want to create a security group, what to be allowed, what not to be allowed, all those you go ahead and manually create it in the mobilize phase. But in our example, since there is pretty much nothing, we don't have to do the mobilize phase. It's a small setup. There is hardly anything that we need to do, especially the time crunch as well. The third step is to install the migration agent. What did you install first? You installed the discovery service, or ADS, application discovery service. What do you do next? You go ahead and install the migration. What do you use that for? Using AWS Application Migration Service, MGN. So here is where you go ahead and add the servers that you want to migrate. So far, you're only discovering, and now you're going to go ahead and migrate. So when you're actually migrating, it's asking you, what's the operating system, Windows or Linux? Do you want to replicate all the disks or just the OS disk? Because you don't want to migrate the data disk if there is a case like that. And like how we created an ADS user as a separate user for security, it's better that you create one user for migration purpose alone in your production workloads, but otherwise it's okay. You can use your admin user itself. Similar way, similar fashion, you have a wget, which is basically a command to download your migration agent, and then you have a command to download your or install the agents that you downloaded. Let's go ahead and do that as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the source server, select Linux. I want all the disks. I copy these two commands, or I'll just say copy. I go to the I go to the notepad and paste. So like how I finished the ADS, let's go ahead and paste this one. So download and install. Here also you have an option that says access key, security key, just like what we did, the access key and security key. So let's go ahead and download the .py file, which is the migration installation file. Which machine? We'll do it on the Apache Linux one only first. Hit enter. Okay, it's downloaded. Now Let's replace the username and password here. Okay. Now copy this command, hit enter. The installation of AWS Replication Agent has started. It has identified there are 2 disks in this machine. It's downloading the replication agent onto this Apache Linux 1 server. Okay, it's installing the agent that was downloaded. So far so good. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and download the same agent on your other machine, nginx linux 2. What is the IP address of that machine? nginx linux 2 is private IP address, I mean, is 20016. I'm entering the username and password for that server. And once it is there, let's go ahead and install the same things on this second server also, because we usually do it simultaneously, right? You don't wait for one machine and then do the other one. Okay, seems like one of it is complete. Okay, hit enter. And now the same prompts. You keep them side by side. The replication agent is working. It's going on. And what does it say? It says downloading is finished, installation is finished, syncing is started, and you have one active server, or total quota 20. You can only replicate 20 machines at the same time. If you have more than 20, we request AWS to increase the quota. Replication agent was successfully installed. Great news. Now let's see it on the second server. It should be done in the next 30 seconds. I'm just waiting for both of it to be completed before I jump into the console. Okay, we can just minimize this one. And if you have any questions while this is going on, I'll take any questions if there is anything. I'm just looking into the question pane. Okay. Yeah. Discovery agent is to be installed on the source machine. Yes, Ganesh, we need to install it on the source machine only, because it's basically to discover the specs of that machine. What's the disk IOPS, how much of data is stored, what is the total size of the disk. You can see in the replication agent also, you can see it's identifying the disk size of 8 GB and then a 31 GB. All that information is captured to AWS so that they can help us with the right sizing, what is the recommended machine that you need to use, and all those things can be identified easily. Okay, so it does take a little longer, but anyways, I'm just minimizing it, and we'll go back to our application migration service source servers. Okay, it says Apache Linux 1. I can already see it. Sync is 0%, and I'm just waiting for the second one. Okay, great. So I can see both my servers where I've installed the agent. Where I've installed my agent, these two servers have started to send the data. It says it's great, it's successfully installed replication agent. Now, if I wait for a few hours based on the size of the disk, because these two have 32 GB disk. And have you wondered why didn't I do it for my third server? I have 3 servers, but I went ahead and installed the discovery service as well as the migration service only on these 2. The reason I didn't do the third one, which is IIS web server, which is Windows, is because it has a 127 GB disk. So the replication time, discovery time, everything will be a little longer than the other 2 because they're small machines and it will be done quickly. The Windows server takes a really long time, so I've already done it before. Now, I'm just gonna go back and just come back. Okay, it says not ready. Initial sync is 0%. It says stalled, but it should change the status in some time. So the sync must be 100% complete and the status should change to ready, ready. Once the machines are ready, you can go ahead and launch the instances after. So basically from this Azure tab, these two machines are copying to the AWS services. Once the copy is 100% completed, we can go ahead and create the EC2 instances in AWS, and then we are good to go. We can go ahead and start using the servers in AWS. But how does it look like? If I go to EC2, I told you I've already done for one Windows machine. So if I go to the EC2, while we're waiting for the replication, it can take a few hours. So I see there is one machine which is already running in AWS. And if I copy the IP address of that machine and paste it here, it says this is our tests Windows server hosted in Azure East US. It's the same thing on this machine also, because this is basically the copied machine. So it's basically the same server which was copied from Azure to AWS. Now what do you do? Now that the replication is successful and it's copied, stop your Windows web server in Azure and change the DNS to AWS so that this becomes your primary application server where your customers can access the website. This is a very, very high level migration process from on-prem to cloud or Azure to AWS or anywhere to AWS. I hope it was useful. I hope it is something that you guys didn't know before and you learned something interesting. I completely agree if you found this overwhelming. Too many things, too many names, 7 hours, 4 phases, ADS, MGN, DMS, SCT, too many, right? But you will figure it out over the time when you're practicing over and over again. So that is like a very short demo that I had on how to migrate from the source to the destination and how the process works. And the server runs on AWS. Now, going back to the PPT, the next obvious question that you would have is, I explained this and then I showed you how to migrate from one place to another, but that's not just a 1.5 hours of task, right? If it is just 1.5 hours, anybody who watches this video can learn migration. So it is a little lengthy because it's a complex process. It's a very, very high paying job. So it does take some time to get used to the terminologies, technology, the naming conventions. Definitely needs a lot of practice. You practice more. See, while I'm on the session, whatever I'm doing, it might look like it is working perfectly fine the first time, but it is not. I'm being honest with you. Like the AWS CTO, Mr. I think his name is Werner Vogel or something. His famous quote is, "Everything fails all the time. It happens with me. It happens with you. It happens with AWS. It happens with Microsoft. Everything breaks all the time. So better practice it more so that you get swift and comfortable with all these breakages." And if you want to learn migration full-fledged, if you found it interesting, it is easy, and you can change your career, definitely within 4 to 6 weeks and with consistent practice, you can excel this skill, which is definitely a niche in the market where not a lot of cloud engineers have or know how to migrate the workloads. So in order to migrate your application, definitely you need to know the AWS services which are relevant to it, like EC2, S3, permissions, what is cloud formation, what is auto scaling, and how do you deploy your VPC? How do you secure your VPC and the workloads that you have deployed? How do you make sure that the alerts and monitoring are in place? And then once you're strong with these things, then we can get started with the migration. Because otherwise it would be like Greek and Latin. You wouldn't understand head and tail of what we're doing when we deep dive into the migrations. And once the applications and servers are migrated, the next obvious step is migrate your database, migration data, and then the way more complex, migrating your monolith application to microservices. Microservices is the latest trend in the application development. These are like independent microservices. These are independent services which access independent application. So I would suggest you to practice more, take some time, learn the basics, get your fundamentals strong, and then touch the big brothers, the migration of application, database, data, and the microservices architecture, and so on.
And that's a wrap for today's video. But hold on, if you're serious about mastering AWS migration, do not miss out our latest upload. You can click here to watch it right now. Plus, if you need extra hands-on guidance, you can check out our AWS Migration Bootcamp, and the link for that will be given in the description below. So do check it out.